Welcome to the Mentorship Challenge. I'm Marc Wainer, and mentorship is something that I'm passionate about. On this program, we have now had 2,000 hours and more pledged by mentors and over 1,000 mentees who have applied. They've started connecting, and already the feedback is that it's a positive experience for both the mentors and the mentees. If you haven't seen all of our interviews and some that haven't been screened, I urge you to look at our YouTube channel where all of these are available. With me today is Yoni Titi. Yoni, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks, Marc.
Thank you. So, Yoni, you've got an unbelievable history. Educated in Queenstown, matriculated, came from difficult circumstances where your father had gone bankrupt, stuck you on a train, sent you to Johannesburg, where you started working and did your undergraduate degree through UNISA. You obviously did that very, very well because you were awarded the Nelson Mandela Scholarship, which took you to Edinburgh University. You went on to the Schulich School of Business at York University in Toronto. You worked you served internship at the United Nations. Georgetown University, you did qualified as a leadership coach. You did law. You specialized in intellectual property, banking. It seems to me like you're too young to have studied all of these things and still been around. And then 10 years ago, you start your own business. And that business is Yoni Titi Human Capital, and you also have Yoni Titi Properties. Just tell us a little bit about Yoni Titi Human Capital, what you do, and what made you go into that field.
Thanks, Marc. I think coming from a banking environment, with my last role having been working with the executive committee at large at First National Bank, I had an urge to go into some form of business. And I thought that I wanted to be in an environment where I could work with people. And I think talent management and recruitment was sort of something very close to my heart. Basically matching organizations with the right kind of talent and basically contributing in that particular manner. So I think the pull factor was to work with people and also to be independent of perhaps a corporate environment and to create some form of legacy as well.
So that's what you do, and you've been doing that for 10 years, but then you also do leadership training. Yeah,
and I think the passion there came from realizing that I could help middle management and senior management individuals. I have a passion for the African females as they transition into more executive kind of roles. So I do the leadership coaching within financial services as well as the telecom space as well.
You have this passion to help women. How difficult is it today in South Africa for women to get into those executive positions?
It has been a challenge for women to be able to advance themselves within corporate South Africa, but at the same time, there have been some great success stories, both from the companies themselves who've devoted themselves to transformation and basically placing the right individual in the right role and sponsoring them internally in terms of fast-tracking them and various developmental kind of initiatives.
So along the way, have you made mistakes?
I've made mistakes along the way. From a business perspective, I think I was initially very much back of the envelope kind of operator, and I had to learn to run, even though my business was small, to run it like a business. I think the other mistake perhaps that I made was that I became very operational in my business, and it was sort of like my baby, instead of releasing it. And that obviously taught me lessons about being open to the growth that the business is experiencing and not holding on to it too much.
So you've gone through this incredible journey. You've run your own business. To the people out there who are looking, maybe they're just coming out of matric, starting university, ultimately going to start a business or work, what advice would you give them?
The advice, Marc, is that I think there's great value in first gaining formal experience in an environment that is a full-time job. I think there's such great lessons you learn and you get exposed to so much. I think the other advice I'd probably give them is work for companies, if you do work for a company, whose values and whose leadership you could be able to look up to. Do your studies understand what actually attracts you to a particular organization. And I think also have the passion for what you're doing. You've got to find a differentiator in yourself when you either become an entrepreneur or you become an employee. We're no longer looking for just the skills now. We're looking for the right attitude in individuals. So the right attitude, the willingness to commit and go the extra mile. I think those are the key things that I'd probably, recommend mostly to them.
I would say to them, start small. Okay, start small, learn the lessons, and definitely have a mentor.
No, definitely. I mean, having a mentor is very valuable because that's your go-to person. And also because they're not in a leadership coaching capacity, they're able to give you advice. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I think that's really at the core of the benefit of having a mentor. If you're coming out of university and you want a CEO to mentor you, that journey for them, it's too different. You need to have the right mentor who's more closer to where you started from and where you
started. So if you're starting a business, maybe somebody who started 3 or 5 years ago.
That's it.
Kind of scenario.
That's it.
So it's been a fascinating journey. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm awed by this list of degrees and qualifications that you have, and you seem like you're only about 30 years old or something. So that's amazing. We want to know from you, how many hours of your time are you going to be able to give us to help and inspire the people out there who are looking for someone like you to mentor them?
I think 32.
32. You've got 32. It's over 12 months or more, because as a mentor, it's not really the number. You form a bond and it continues.
Absolutely.
But now I'd like to ask you, do you know anybody, a friend, a colleague, somebody who you think would also make a good mentor in your field or any other field?
I would put Nolwandle Mbalo as the individual. She's recently appointed as the CEO for Standard Bank Short-Term Insurance. And I'd recommend it because the insurance space, that is where we are lacking in African female representation. And I think her being a mentor to somebody who wants to go in that direction up to a CEO level in a field that's doesn't have a lot of women in it would be of great benefit.
Okay, our production team will contact her, and if she doesn't want to do it, we'll report her to some Chabalala.
Absolutely, and to me as well.
And to you as well, so we'll sort it out. Yoni, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing your incredible story with us. It's truly appreciated, and I'm sure that there are dozens of people out there who are going to watch this show and apply to be mentored by you, and I certainly can assure them that if they have the opportunity, it's something that they should grab with both hands. As a token of my appreciation, I'd like to give you a copy of my book, Making My Mark, Lessons from a Life in Property. So you're in the property space as well. Maybe there's something in there that you'll learn, but I doubt it.
I'm sure there's a lot. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. If you would like to be mentored by Yoni, please register on the website. It could change your life. See you after the break. With me today is Rodney Berman. If you don't know who Rodney is, then you don't watch boxing. Rodney, welcome. Golden Gloves. Been in the promoting boxing for what, 40 odd years now?
40 years, yeah. 40 years plus now.
40 years plus. So it's quite interesting because even for people who watch super sport and boxing, what they probably don't know is that you started life as a lawyer.
Yeah, I am an attorney.
You're an attorney, okay.
Well, I'm going back, it's 1977. I was truly a very struggling attorney. As I say, I probably had a handful of clients. And one of them who I always credit, and he's very modest, and I hope he happens to listen to the show. In fact, I might phone him. His name is Brian Joseph. And he was supporting me big time. He came to me one day, and the late Morris Tawil, who was the leading promoter in the 60s, 70s. He was part of the famous Tawil family.
They dominated boxing.
And still to this day, worldwide, one of the most famous. And Morris, who'd gone through a very poor time, had bounced a check on them. They'd lent him money. I was approached by Brian to ask if I would sue Morris Tawil on that check. The reality is that I learned afterwards everybody else they'd approached turned them down because the Tawils were perceived mafia. Anyhow, I was in such a precarious position it made no difference to me, and I gladly took it. And the truth is that Morris and I just connected. In fact, we're on a mentorship program, and truth to say, he's one of my mentors in life. He couldn't teach me academically, but about the street life, the ways of life. He taught me many things. He was a paraplegic, and I ultimately finished up sequestrating him with the consent of my client, Brian Joseph, because he's in so much trouble. And they had a fighter called Charlie Weir. I didn't have much to do with boxing, but I'd read about him. He was making all the headlines. He had a silver fetlock.
Silver assassin.
Well, he was actually, to start with, the white assassin, but because of the politics and the sensitivity, I was advised, and I had no ulterior motive, but it was white. So we changed it to the silver assassin. And I thought I'd be around and help Morris for 2-3 fights and move on. So I didn't have any money. I got together other people's money, 3 or 4 of my mates. I think we needed 4 or 5 grand in those days. And I was going to be in the game for 2 or 3 months. The fight he fought a guy, Bushy Best, at the Wembley Stadium. It was the 28th of August, 1977. And that was 40 years ago, and I'm still in the game.
I was at that fight, and I paid the princely sum of 4 rand for a ticket.
Well, you were ringside.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell
things
you,
have changed.
It's indicative for people today. We charged 4 rand, that was ringside, 3 rand, and the unreserved was 2 rand. But inflationary time, that rand difference in each price made the world of difference to people.
So that was your start, and you have to have been now one of the longest serving boxing promoters. 40 years is a long time to be in the fight game.
Yes.
And over that period of time, I mean, you've done something like 250 world title fights. Any South African boxer who's anybody, Vuyani Bungu, Dingon Tabela, Baby Jake Matlala, you name them, currently Heki Butler, Larina, these are all guys who've been promoted by you. So you've seen it all, 250 world title fights. What was it about boxing that, aside from the fact that you weren't being so successful as a lawyer, that actually got you into this game?
I could not understand, against everybody else's advice, why one couldn't make money and be successful as a boxing promoter. And it was a life changer for me because I was very shy, very held back, a lot of complexes like all the youngsters had. And that's what I'd like when I mentor as well, now when I'm older. And you see how stupid it all was. And for the first time in my life, I thought, I'm not going to listen to everybody. This is my instinct telling me, and I can make it work.
You make the point. You've been in the game for 40 years. You followed your instinct. There are very few boxing promoters who actually make money out of the game. You're one of the few.
I've always had financial guys at my side. Funny enough, although an attorney, I have Stan Fanroff, my partner, always to go to accountants. And that's why it's worked, because I come there with my big ideas and we'll sit down and look at it and see financially, does it work or not.
The other thing that always puzzles me is, not just in South Africa, but worldwide, you have highly successful boxers who today fight for huge purses, and yet a few years after retirement, they broke.
Boxers have a relatively very small, short career, and a lot of them come from the wrong side of the tracks. It's like taking a kid, unfortunately, into a sweet shop or a toy shop, and it's the first time they've ever had money, and they've never been mentored how to look after the money. We try. We have a lot of insurance policies for our fighters, but it's something we can't control, regrettably.
Shouldn't there be almost legislation which says, okay, 10% of your purse has to be invested and you can only access it when you're 40 or something?
Anybody can walk off the street tomorrow, apply for a boxer's manager's license and be granted it. And I've always advocated that to be a manager, to be a trainer, there must be some qualification, some knowledge of finance. Unfortunately, it's not the point. So, look, there's a very seedy side of boxing. There's a very beautiful side of boxing. But one of the seedy sides is that there's a lot of hangers-on in the game. But for every bad guy, you probably meet 2 or 3 wonderful people.
And I mean, the reputation that boxing had years ago, I don't know if that fights were rigged and guys took dives. Is that a thing of the past, or does it still happen?
You know, it's fanciful. A guy, let's take a Brian Mitchell at his level. He was earning $1 million a fight, $500,000 a fight. Is he going to take a dive and lose the opportunity of making that kind of money? Is his opponent, who's got a fetch, you know, everybody in that ring's got an opportunity. He's got the one opportunity to fight on major TV. Is he going to take a dive and never get the opportunity? So it is very fanciful.
You're not a square peg in a round hole. Somehow you found this career, and it's a passion, and you love what you do, and you live it, and you enjoy it. But along the way, you've made mistakes?
Sure, we made terrible mistakes. One of my worst mistakes was I mismatched Charlie Weir when I was very young in ignorance. I, thank goodness, have never, ever had a situation where there's been a ring fatality. I rather have the reputation of being a greedy promoter who drops a fighter when he loses than putting a fighter in the ring and seeing him 10 years later and he doesn't know what his name is. So you learn, obviously you learn from mistakes.
We'll be back with Rodney after the break, so don't go away. What I find fascinating about boxing is that, and I think you alluded to earlier, the boxing ring is really life.
Yes.
So for a lot of people, in fact, most boxers come from poverty. Okay, this is their way out. They need discipline. And work to achieve what they achieve. And then a lot of them, as soon as they start becoming successful, start becoming complacent, and they lose the kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of life lessons that one can learn from boxing.
Very many. The first one is not how many times you fall down, it's the ability to get up, which happens to all of us in every aspect of life. The secondly, at the end of the day, after everything's said and done, it's you and him. 2 fighters are in the ring together, and it doesn't matter what advice they've been given, where they come from, who's watching. And the third thing is, which you've just alluded to, it's your mentality. Certain people are humble enough to be thankful to whoever the Almighty is for the talent they've been given, the opportunities. Others believe that they're above everything, and that ego kills them. And that's life.
Somebody out there wants to get into the boxing business, whether it's as a boxer, whether it's as a trainer, a promoter, whatever. What advice would you have for somebody who wanted to get into the business
I think
today?
the advice I'd give, which would apply to anything, and I always tell my youngsters, I tell my own kids, whatever you want to do in life, if it's not your passion, if you don't like it, you've got to love it. You've got to, because if you do, you never work a day in your life. Every day, as you know, what you do, you love. The other thing is you've got to have perseverance. You've got to be able to take those knocks and keep coming back, because you're not dropped by parachute. You walk up a mountain. And just in our case, for example, which I'm very proud of the fact, we produced our first world champion after 12 years. We just keep knocking and knocking and taking knock after knock. But when that door opened, it was a floodgate.
Who was that?
It was Welcome Nita.
Welcome.
And then Brian Mitchell joined her. And Welcome fought in Israel. And it's still, probably when you ask me, that's the most memorable fight of my career.
Out of all the fights you've promoted, all the boxers, if I had to say to you, which one of them stands out? Which is your favorite, the best?
My favorite boxer, it's very hard because, I've got Brian Mitchell who's very close to me. But I would say that as a human being and as the most successful and who remained the most humble, it's without doubt Yoni Titi.
Yoni.
He is a super human being.
I saw that you're trying to get him inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame.
It's an obsession with me. You know, he went
he deserves
13
it.
defences, undefeated. And what people don't really understand is the dedication that is required for that. When you're fighting at that weight, as was with Brian Mitchell, and you've got to maintain a certain weight which is alien to your body for 12, 13 years as you're growing older, it gives you some idea of what dedication is required to do that.
So,
and sacrifice.
You've had this remarkable career, okay, 40 years. Keep doing the same. Is there anything else you would want to do besides having a heavyweight champion?
I am very grateful to the powers that be for giving me such an exciting life, the people I've met, the countries I've travelled to, and it's very rewarding for me to take youngsters. You know, half the time it's a 19-year-old coming to negotiate with me and helping them along, because at the end of the day, the fame, the notoriety, the wealth that they acquire, they could never do it without proper mentoring and without proper managementship. So that's very rewarding for me.
Well, you've done a fantastic job, and you've produced, or certainly assisted, all of these people.
The problem is, you know, certain people are born money people. They can lose fortunes because that's how they're born. Others are great sportsmen. Others are great musicians. Everybody's got a talent. You've got to be lucky in life to find what your strength is. And to be, I call it an impresario, not a promoter. You've got to be a bit dilly in your head, first of all.
Well, then we both qualify.
Yeah. Well, I know you qualify. But so it's a makeup. You can't teach somebody to have a kind of personality which he hasn't got. But all you can do, is to guide them along the way on how to temper the finances, etc.
It's fascinating. It's been an incredible journey for you. So for me, thank you for the entertainment that you've provided over the years. I really enjoy it. These days I don't get there as much as I should, but I'll be phoning you for tickets.
Whenever you want, it's a pleasure.
And the real reason you're here, okay, is a fascinating story. But what we want from you is to mentor people out there who want to be connected some way into the boxing business. So how many hours of your time can you give me to mentor people out there who would like to learn from you?
I'd love to mentor. If I can just interrupt on your suggestion, I believe that I could only be value adding in mentoring, in promotership. I am very happy, and what I would suggest I would do on the 1st of September, which we have 2 or 3 big dates coming up this year, but the 1st of September is a very big date. Obviously can't announce a tournament yet, and I would be very happy to mentor somebody. They could shadow me and my team for 2-3 weeks before the event and see from all aspects, from the accommodation of the fighters, the transport of the fighters, setting up of the ring, contracts. I'm very happy to give them 3 weeks.
And then the next question I have for you is, do you know anybody else, either in your field or completely unrelated, who you think would be a good mentor that we could get some time from?
Well, interrelated, and I believe, I'm sure he would be very happy to do so. It's somebody that is a very talented young man. I've been with him many years. He's with Supersport. His name is Clinton van der Berg. He does a lot of the marketing for Supersport, and I'm sure he would take up the challenge.
Okay, so we'll get our production team to talk to him.
Correct.
Tell him that you've challenged him, and I thank you. It's been a pleasure reconnecting, hearing the story. Looking forward to the 1st of September. I better make sure I'm not travelling, so it sounds like it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be your mentor, you better be there.
It's going to be exciting. Rodney, as a token of my appreciation, I'd like to give you a copy of my book, Making My Mark, Lessons from a Life in Property.
Thank you, because you're a man that's really made it. So
you should write one, Lessons from a Life in Boxing Promoting.
I've been offered, but I thought there would be 2 readers, my mother and father. They both passed away. So
If you would like to be mentored by Rodney, please register on our website. It could change your life. See you next week.